KUNC and the NPR network, this is In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Housing costs in Colorado's mountain resort towns are so high that many workers can't afford an apartment or a room in the towns where they do their jobs. In Summit County, dozens of workers opt for an unusual solution. They pay $75 a month for a pass that lets them sleep in their car in a parking lot in Frisco. The organization Unsheltered in Summit runs the Summit Safe Parking Program. The program manages the parking lot and provides a portable toilet and trash disposal. Tenants in the lot must show a pay stub that proves they work in the area. The New York Times has reported it's the only program of its kind in the country. Paul Minjares lives in one of these lots and helps manage it as a paid employee. He joined me to talk about what it's like and how he first heard about the lot after he'd lost his apartment and started sleeping in his car.
So I had been parking in a spot that was kind of hidden and incognito. And then I'd been there for maybe about 65 days where I was able to get away with it. But then they finally spotted me. So the officer came to my window and knocked on it and then said they've had this problem many times where they have to go knock on people's doors who are sleeping in their cars because it's illegal.
Right.
And then he handed me a card, like a business card, that was for Unsheltered. It was the Safe Parking Program. And it had a number on there for me to call. So that was my first introduction into the program or even knowing about it.
Now, you worked as a musician and you worked at Breckenridge Brewery at the time. How hard was it to try to find more traditional housing?
So by that point, I'd been living in the county for 10 years and I had been slowly shoveled around because Airbnb started taking over and then people started realizing they could do short-term housing rentals, which would probably pay them quadruple of what they would for people who were just renting, long-term lease. So by that time, it had just become so hard because, like I said, everyone was starting to charge double rent or they were just flat out telling us you couldn't rent anymore after your lease because they were going to do renovations and do the short-term housing.
So, Paul, you were the first employee hired as a lot host for this parking lot about 2.5 years ago. It's a job that sounds really similar to a campground host. Now you screen applicants who want to live there. What do you consider during the screening process?
Well, I just have to consider first if their car is actually going to fit into a normal-sized parking spot. So we do have people who apply that have like 35-foot campers or trailers, and then we just can't have those because they don't fit in conventional spots. I go from there, and then I ask them, like how long they've been in the county, where they work, and then I just kind of ask them like their intentions, how long they think they're going to be using the program. Maybe what are the signs of people that, aren't qualified for this program or who won't be safe for the program. Just kind of keep an eye out.
How many applicants did you have for this past winter season and how many spots were available?
We have a total of like 33 that we used this past winter. And then after I filled up all those spots, then we had, it was between 40 and 50 people on our wait list.
Wow. High demand.
Yeah, very high demand.
Tell me a bit about what it's like to live in the lot. How hard is it to, have to come back to your car at the end of a long day of work?
It's not hard at all. It's very easy and it's very comforting knowing that you have a place to go every night. And that's what I've talked with all the members. Like they've told me, like, you don't know how much this means to me. I'm not going to be woken up by cops. I'm not going to have to, be secretive. So it's just worked out for everyone's like mental health just to not have that stress.
It sounds like the safety and the sort of peace of mind of having that dedicated spot is really helpful.
Peace of mind is the key word, yes.
So there was a recent New York Times article that I mentioned that described one tenant in the lot trying to stay warm overnight in her van using an electric blanket. I'm wondering, how do people use gadgets and set up their cars to make the winter more bearable?
So she was kind of more on the low end of what people do to stay warm in their vehicle. A couple of people I've known to have 0-degree sleeping bags. So with that stuff, they can turn their car on, blast the heater, and then turn it off. And then they will stay really warm in their sleeping bag all night. That one girl, Megan, with an electric blanket that I gave her, you could put that under your blankets and that will keep your whole entire body warm all night. And then other people that are in like the Sprinter vans or like my setup, we all have diesel heaters that just require a 3-gallon gas tank. And then that's how we stay safe and warm, because it's just like having a normal heating system inside your house.
Other towns around Colorado and elsewhere in the nation have attempted similar programs to this, but they've been shut down. Why has this program been successful where others have not?
Well, like our main selling point to like the towns and everywhere else where we've set up, we say all of our members are, full-time employed and they work in the county. So I think that's where maybe a lot of people have failed to screen people, is whether or not they have a job.
And it just makes me think that there are people who might look at the existence of this program as a failure on the part of Summit County leaders to find sustainable housing for the people who work there. What would you tell those people who might feel that way?
It's definitely a factor that the inaction of the government here. In Breckenridge, during this time where all this housing crisis was going on, they built a multi-million-dollar parking garage to cater more towards the ski season. And it wasn't till at least 3 years after that, it was only this past year where they had built a workforce housing. So it was just a very late response to it, which kind of made it seem frustrating at a lot of times.
Sure.
But also just because the Airbnb craze just kind of took over. So it was just all these people who were second homeowners, they jumped on board and they kicked out all the tenants as soon as they knew they could quadruple their prices. So it just kind of happened pretty fast.
Paul, is living in this parking lot situation sustainable for you in the long term?
Well, since I was able to kind of break down, what are my main needs and what are my necessities to be happy in this car? So once I had figured that out, it's basically I have my own apartment. I have internet right now from T-Mobile. It's called Getaway. It's for people that maybe live in RVs or travel a lot. And then I also have a TV setup. I have like my little music studio set up, my computer. I got a microwave. I got an electric generator. So even when we have power outages, I'm completely fine.
And so you plan to stay for the foreseeable future?
As long as I live in Summit County, yes, I will be doing this. I just don't see this being solved within that time frame. So I've just accepted this is where I'm at right now, and I'm just going to keep saving money and enjoying what I'm doing right now.
Paul Minjares lives in a Summit County parking lot designated for local workers and helps manage it as a paid employee. We'll include a link to the New York Times article where you can read more in our show notes and at KUNC.org. That's it today for In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Thank you so much for listening.